Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sales Technology Podcast. I'm joined today by Kristina Jaramillo, the president and partner at Personal ABM, account-based marketers. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Thank you for joining. Whenever we can get an expert on ABM and the topic that you focus on exclusively, just super excited to talk about it. And you've been in this business for a long time. How did you start the company and get into this?
It's interesting. I actually joined forces with my business partner almost 12, maybe over 13 years ago. He ran a content marketing firm, and he kind of noticed that the more precise the content was to the actual account, the better results there were, the better it resonated with them. And we kind of evolutionized or evolved from there, learning as we went, and adopting the challenger sale to know that the more relevant we can get to the actual named organization past the persona and pain point, the better our results were, and the closer we were to helping people or helping our clients close deals more effectively and at a higher ACV. So that's where we've been, and we've evolved over the years, and it's been a ride.
Well, it's been amazing. And, if I look back several years in sales, you would always sit down and go, okay, what's in my territory? What are the top accounts? Where do I need to break into? And it seemed like when account-based marketing came on the scene, it was essentially aligning that behavior that the salespeople were already doing with
Yeah.
with the harnessing the power of marketing beyond just pinpointed demand generation to really thinking about things holistically at the account level.
Yeah, sales were at the forefront, and marketing finally figured it out that maybe we should be on the same page.
Exactly. And there's so much investment put into marketing, and there's an old saying, it's like 50% of our marketing budget was wasted. It's just that we don't know which 50% it was. But uh,
So
yeah, now we can organize it better. And I know that you've been really focused on the technology to implement in order to leverage ABM systems. And it seems like there's kind of a growing skepticism about especially intent data and the platforms, similar to Sixth Sense. Your polls have showed that many of the go-to-market teams are getting limited returns from some of the technology. What are you seeing in that respect?
So first of all, these platforms are great, and I've seen a lot of different results for them. And Sixth Sense was named 4 years in a row as a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for ABM. So it validates the immense value they're delivering to their customers, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the gaps or that there aren't gaps that need to be filled. And in the case of what I've seen in Sixth Sense, what I've heard from other people that have used it is it's not so much the platform, although some people argue about the accuracy of the data, but that remains to be seen. But it's more how the teams are failing to educate their customers on how to effectively leverage that intent and kind of use it as a springboard. But how they should also be using it with other signals like ICP signals and problem profile signals to be more predictive. And I follow Chris Walker from Passato and Refine Labs. And a couple of days ago, he mentioned that he's seen issues with Sixth Sense, Terminus, which is Terminus by Demand Science now, Demandbase over 4 years ago. He saw that there was problems with the platform, and then he sees that there's still the same issues, that a lot of people teams that are using the platform struggle with the same issues that are leading to churn. I think what the issue is that these platforms aren't advising their clients on the readiness that really needs to be included prior to an ABM implementation. And as a result, a lot of these teams are just doing better targeting because they've retrofitted the tech on top of what they were already doing. So they have the same processes, same content, same messaging. They're delivering the same experiences. So ultimately, what I've seen and heard from people who have used the platform is that they're able to drive pipeline, which is fantastic, with supposed ICP accounts, but they're not converting. And that's really where the problem is that
Hmm.
the customers need to know how to use this intent because it's time lagged, it's speculative, and they need to know other things that need to layer on top of the intent. So, one problem I've seen is that a lot of these platforms aren't offering a strategic professional service along with the platform.
Hmm.
So, a lot of teams are relying on customer success managers, which really isn't going to cut it if you need to change that operating mindset of multiple executives and align on new metrics. And it's something that I talk about a lot is if we're having the wrong social, live, email conversations, whatever they are, and interactions, and delivering the wrong experiences, then it's going to be more and more difficult to get these accounts to revenue, even if they're in market or not. And accounts that will, are never going to convert. It's just going to make your job harder. And I've even spoken to CMOs, and most recently one at a channel sales and marketing platform. And when I asked her about her ABM strategy, she just mentioned that they use a bunch of different platforms, Sixth Sense being one of them. She even talked about being a case study for the Sixth Sense platform, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're seeing the maximum return on that platform. When I dug a little deeper, asked her some more follow-up questions, I learned that they were consistently winning with accounts that were around the 75K mark or less, but then they would also consistently lose to legacy platforms. And in their case, it was Salesforce when any of the deals were over that 75K mark. So to me, ABM should be increase your deal size. It should improve your enterprise win rates. It should drive greater NRR growth and stronger customer lifetime value. And we need to see how we can teach for differentiation and how we can help our teams show the cost of inaction to help buyers stay, move from the status quo and take a riskier bet. And retrofitting ABM and adding other platforms and other intent like Sixth Sense is not going to fix the issues alone. It's going to prevent sales and go-to market teams from driving the greatest win possible.
Okay. And so taking a step back, in a perfect world, what should these systems do? Like, and looking at it from an individual contributor perspective. So a salesperson or an SDR or, a customer success, they're using these systems. What would be a perfect scenario? And then what are you seeing that where it's, not working?
So perfect scenario with these platforms is people would have our teams would have a ABM strategy. They do the ABM readiness prior to investing in them because
Mm-hmm.
these solutions can be anywhere from six figures. I've seen anywhere from 100 to 200 to even 300,000 a year. So in order to purchase something like that and then invest in using it and activating it, a lot of these teams in a perfect world would have that strategy first and figure out where they're going to use ABM. So are they going to use ABM to prevent churn or reduce churn? Are they going to use ABM to go up market? Are they going to use ABM to expand some of their best clients because they know there's an opportunity for growth? I think the best way to go about adopting an ABM or an account-based strategy is to see where there's red in the business. Where are you losing the most revenue? Where are you leaving the most revenue on the table? And then develop a strategy to address that solution or that challenge first. And then you can, once you've gotten better at it and you've gotten some success with it, then you can look to leverage it in other areas. But that to me would be the best way.
Okay. And would that look like would you want to set up like a workshop with your team first to say, okay, here's everything that we know about the market and like our business and how things are falling through the cracks or our deal sizes not big enough, etc. And like laying that out first on paper what your strategy is going to be and then based on that picking out the technology to support the strategy.
Yes, ideally. And I think that the workshop should include, anyone who's customer facing or prospect facing so that we're all on the same page because I see a lot of teams that say that they're aligned, sales and marketing are aligned, or they're aligned with customer success or whatever. And then you dig a little deeper and you notice that they're aligned in theory, but not in action. So
Mhm.
one of the first things you would do is to make sure that everyone's on the same page of what is account-based strategy? Why are we doing it? How are we going to do it? How are we going to change the approach for these accounts? And how are we going to identify accounts that fit us for this kind of approach? And how do we come together to decide the accounts that we want to target as a team? It can't just be, we have a contact there. This would be a great logo to have on our site as an example. It has to be, does this account fit as an account that would potentially land and grow with us? Do they have a problem or a strategic priority in place that we can play a role in? And does it make sense for us to even, target them, because we know that they'll be a great fit moving forward, not just they're a quick win now, but we'll churn them in the next 12 to 18 months or whatever. So it definitely has to be that everyone knows why we're doing it, what the goals are. We all have metrics that are similar, and that we're all speaking the same language, because I feel like that's where a lot of problems happen when it's just an account, it's a marketing thing. And it's not fully, like sales is not fully on board, then it's going to fall flat.
See that all the time. And then in your experience, as you work with clients and in implementing this, who's usually in charge of the implementation? And the reason I ask is, if it's just something coming from marketing, there's always that, Mars and Venus, atmosphere between sales and marketing and stuff. And then you have the executives who just are looking at something completely different. Who's usually in charge of this if you see it happening successfully?
So I think the most successful is when product marketing and or field marketing are running it, because they are the closest to the customer without actually being in sales. And they act more of the enablement or the account-based enablement that's needed. So they can see what's happening maybe at a webinar or at an event or a conference, and then they can give those insights to sales, and then sales can give their insights to product marketing or field marketing, and then they can figure out what's the next course of action, what's that next step in the strategy. So when the product marketing or field team is the kind of the running of in charge of the strategy, I've seen it's being more successful. And I also think that sales is more receptive when you tell them that you are going to help them close deals faster and larger and more efficiently and effectively, and you're going to arm them with the content and the messaging and the information that they need so they can do their job better. That's when everything kind of locks into place.
It clicks into place. And so once you've got it sort of organized like this, then just switching gears, what is intent data, and what does that actually mean? And so you your right accounts, and the people that you should be talking to, their problems. How do they find out about you and then start clicking on things so that you can engage?
Yeah. So the thing is with intent that I'm not as fully like 100% behind, and I've heard a lot of people being unhappy with the accuracy in the first place, is that it captures current activity. So it's going to track online behaviors like website visits, keyword searches, content downloads, which is only going to really tell you what that person is actively researching at that moment. So it doesn't show you what buyers or which buyers are more likely to close in the future or what they're going to do in the future. And there's no way to differentiate from the intent if it's intent to learn versus intent to buy when you don't have additional insights, additional signals. And a real big problem that I've seen with intent is that it's not predictive, because there is such that time lag, that the account is going to grow with you versus if that account, even if you do close them, if they're going to churn. So it's not precise. By the time you reach out, a buyer probably has moved on or already made their short list. So they're coming at you with predefined needs, which automatically means they're going to have a smaller deal sizes versus you kind of creating the need and creating the opportunity. And one of the big things that people aren't looking for is, why is their intent in the first place? Because everyone now has some form of intent, if not multiple versions of it. So if we all have the same information and we're all reacting the same way, like they clicked on X, so now they're going to get Y content, then that means we're all in a sea of sameness. We're all saying the same thing. We're not teaching for differentiation. Then you're kind of making it a where can I get the most value for the least amount of money, as opposed to creating that sales cycle and making the deals about the value you can provide versus, the bells and whistles that they're going to get with your solution.
Okay. And it's almost like an arms race because you're
Yes.
everybody's equipped with the same info. But
Mhm.
just flipping it around, say you're a salesperson and you come in one day and 6 Sense is plugged into your Salesforce and you see that one of your named accounts is doing something. They're downloading a white paper. And are you basically saying that's not very useful information from what you've seen?
It,
There's
it
got to be more.
There has to be more because it's
Okay.
almost like it's like a breadcrumb and you had to figure out where that breadcrumb came from. Like
Uh-huh.
I've had bad experiences with really well-named organizations where I'm doing research on behalf of of one of our clients. I will download a research report that's like 30, 40, sometimes 50 pages long. And within 20 minutes of downloading that piece of content, I have gotten two or three emails, set up a demo, two or three phone calls to set up a demo, and I haven't even opened that report to read it, let alone process it, let alone figure out if this is the right piece of information. So it's almost like
Mhm.
I automatically had intent to learn. I wasn't in the place to buy. And I didn't even have a chance to, get through the content, let alone say that I understood what it what if it was the right piece for me. A better course of action would have been maybe in 12 hours, maybe in a day later, to reach out to me and say, "Hey, Kristina, we saw that you downloaded XYZ on this topic, and we've seen a lot of people find, page 5 really valuable because of this." So they're giving me some value instead of just bombarding me with sales, uh,
Mhm.
what they want from me as a potential sales lead.
Yeah. And what's the best course of action for that person who, they're at your top account, they downloaded a white paper, and you gave them some slack, to be able to read it and digest the information. And so you send a couple of emails after and you call them and there's no response. At that point, does it go back into a marketing drip, or do you continue to pursue that lead?
So if I was a salesperson, I would probably take another what stab at it, but from a different angle. Again,
Mhm.
if I'm reaching out to them, it has to be for a reason. So it can't be that I want to talk to them. It can't be that I want to give them a demo. It's that I'm giving them more information. So we know that you're interested in this topic. Did you consider or have you seen that we have this topic? And please pay attention to this section because we know it. I've done some kind of show that you've done some homework on what they might be interested in and what their company does and why they might be interested in that solution to help them, their organization. So, make that kind of connection where it's you're bringing value to every conversation. If you are not, then don't bother sending that email. Don't bother reaching out to them. And if you can't get them on email, I always try LinkedIn as well, because some people are more receptive to that. But if you're not giving me value when you reach out to me, however way you choose, it's kind of a very one-sided conversation, a one-sided relationship, and I can automatically, like everyone else, can smell it a mile away that you're just looking to me to close a deal with me as opposed to actually educate me and help me learn.
Sure. Well, it's tough. It's tough out there. I mean, on both sides, it's hard
Oh
to
yeah.
be a seller in the world of noise like this. And it's hard to be a buyer too, because you probably just wanted to do some research and download a research paper. You didn't necessarily want to get into a sales cycle, so it's hard on both sides. I guess that's why we make the big bucks, right? Because it's not easy. Okay, so what would help the intent signals if you added a layer of intel on top, or even looking at the account insights? Are there other ways to make it more valuable?
Yeah, I think instead of just looking at the intent, we need to figure out, you know, why the intent was in the first place, go beyond proxies that might be using to define our ICP. I see a lot of teams go into either Zoom Info, Sixth Sense, and others, and then they put in all their key demographics. So like they'll put in X industries, X size of company, maybe some technographics, but they're not speaking to the characteristics that show why they're most valuable accounts. So accounts they already have. What do they derive from their solution? Why are these customers staying? Why are they growing? And they're not focusing on the qualitative variables. So like what's important to the account operationally, executionally, philosophically, maybe even culturally, so that way you can be a little more predictive of account that's going to move forward, stay, and expand in the future. So I think a few things that people need to look at when they're looking at an account is we need to uncover what are the characteristics of accounts that provide the greatest revenue growth now and the greatest revenue growth in the future. What made a customer buy in the first place? What was happening when they purchased? So like maybe there was something happening big in the organization that we kind of can look to replicate in, other accounts. What are the characteristics of the accounts that provide the good returns, but have lots of potential for future growth if maybe they change their behaviors or buying behaviors? And what are the characteristics? This is one of the more important thing is what are the characteristics of those accounts that we have that are providing diminishing returns? So like they're costing us more or they're not bringing in enough money to serve them. So we can make sure that we're not actually targeting accounts like that because it looks good on paper, but that at the end of the day, it's like a no-win situation on both sides. So taking that deeper look into existing accounts and then building out our ICP profile and the anti-ICP, which is what I call that, uncover the signals that are going to correlate back to both of these type of accounts so we can efficiently identify future accounts that we want to target and so that we know which ones to stay away from because they might look ideally like a good fit, but then not necessarily. So another thing that I like to look at is business profile signals. So we had someone on our podcast who was the CEO of Rev, Jonathan Spear. It's a ICP management solution. It's something that we use for our clients. And they were targeting, or they were talking, or he spoke about a client that drives the most wins with accounts where the HR department was overwhelmed. They were uncovering signals that would prove how overwhelmed the department is. So they would look for signs of distress, like is the turnover in HR match the turnover for the rest of the company, or is it particularly high, which signifies that there's maybe an issue in the HR that needs to be looked at deeper. And we need to look at, the underlying reasons that companies buy and are related to the pain they have, which is maybe often related to structure of the company, situation they're in, market they're in, products they sell. So we need to, as a team, to look into exographics or the executional details of the organization and the business problem profile.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in my journeys, the marketing department isn't always as plugged in with the actual business and the dollars and cents of how much it costs to do things and the return that you're getting. It's a lot of times I have a budget and I need to spend this, and if I don't spend it, then I'm not going to get as much next year. And I mean, I'm being very general, but do you find that sometimes marketers struggle with those really important questions that you had in that? Where are we spending our time? What's the highest priority? And where are we going to get the biggest bang for our buck?
Oh, yeah, I totally think so because marketing is so conditioned to be focused on the traditional MQAs, MQLs. We need to fill a pipeline, lead gen, we need to scale. All of these pressures are coming from inside the organization. So a lot of times they're resorting back to just filling the pipeline. But let's fill the pipeline with $10 million of potential revenue, but only $500,000 actually closes. Then obviously we're doing something wrong. So we're filling the pipeline with the wrong people. We're not filling them with ICP. So I think marketing as a whole needs to start speaking revenue language, because that's what
Yeah.
will gain them a seat at the table. That's will gain the sales department or the sales team getting on their side, and it will make them accountable for revenue too, because we need to get out of this framework that we're just gonna focus on pipeline. We should be focusing on, is the pipeline we're delivering actually closing at the end of the day? Are we increasing our close and success rates? So are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? Because we should be just as accountable as marketers for revenue as a sales team is. I mean, maybe different metrics, and obviously we're not closing like sales team is, but we
Yeah.
should have responsibility for a certain amount of closed revenue. And it should be a way, there should be a way for us to say that we helped close a deal or that we helped influence a deal, and not just filling that pipeline, because sales will never get on our side if we continually deliver pipeline that leads to nothing for them.
Exactly. Okay, so homework for everybody is go to Udemy and take some accounting classes and a finance class, so you can actually talk about this with
Yeah,
some
it's actually not as
yeah,
hard as people think. I think they just
yeah,
get scared, but
yeah.
it's really not that hard.
Yeah, and you've been running a business now for a long time, so you're an expert, I'm sure, in finance at this point.
Oh my
But
God.
if someone's newer to the marketing team and they've never had their own business and they just don't know how that all works, it's new.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, try to see
yeah,
if you can find someone in sales
mhm,
that can be your ally and kind of be like, can I pick your brain about what are the KPIs and what are the numbers that mean the most to you, so that you can
yeah,
kind of translate it on the other side in marketing, so that, you come to sales and say, we have this great strategy and approach we want to use. And if you start speaking their revenue ease, then their ears are going to perk up and they're going to say, oh, you're actually going to do something other than deliver me a lead that goes nowhere.
tons of leads, and just I'll give you a quick example that I've seen with this is I was working with a company on their SDR team, and they would not spend a dime on enablement and tools and things like that for the SDRs. And long story short, I go to this big conference, really, really big conference in San Francisco, and you go down the escalator at the Moscone Center, and they've got this huge sign. I mean, it is like, and that we're not talking 25, 50, we're talking $250,000 sponsorship for this. And if you've ever been to conferences, it's hit or miss on the leads that you could generate, where I felt like if you had more of sort of a business mindset, it's like, okay, I don't know if the investment's quite going to the right place here. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes.
I'm not going to name any names, but
I see that all the time. And I saw a lovely, I think it was last year or the year before, a B2B tech um Super Bowl commercial that I know cost a pretty penny, and I don't understand why it was at the Super Bowl, but
yeah. I mean, you gotta, I mean, just circling back, ABM, your specialty, you have to target, you have to prioritize, you have to be ruthless in the targeting, because we only have 8 hours in the day. And if you're, spending time on things that are your job security is at risk
oh,
if you're spending tons of money on something that doesn't produce business results.
correct.
Yeah. Well, this is so interesting. So, how do you work with your clients? What do they come to you with as far as their problems? And then how do you actually help them?
Yeah, so most of the time they come with us because they're a little more mature in their ABM strategy for the most part. Some people are a little more green when it comes to the ABM, but
Yeah.
they're maybe using Demandbase, or they're using 6sense, or they're using like a plethora of different of platforms, and they're not gaining revenue, or they're not closing revenue. So again, they're filling that pipeline that's actually not going anywhere. So we like to come into the middle of the buying journey and kind of accelerate that and put some fuel on it, because we're adding account insights, doing account research, creating content for the actual deal that sales is trying to close. So
Mhm.
we have that portion is that people come to us and say, we're having this issue with this is the red that we're having in the business. We're seeing a high churn rate, or we're stuck at this deal size and we want to, increase deal size. There's a specific revenue issue that they're trying to fix. So they asked us to help them. But then there's also people that are like, we want to do ABM, but we're kind of doing it in pockets. So we need to take a step back. How can we do ABM readiness? What kind of things do we have to have in place as a team, as a go-to-market team, to make sure that when we do go full out and we do launch this account-based strategy, that it's going to be successful, so that we can arm sales with the right information and insights and content and messaging, but also have marketing's campaigns be more effective, more efficient, and hit better target wise. So it's a little bit of both, but we have usually like 3 months, so like a 90-day, like a testing period to see that we're a great fit. So believe it or not, a lot of people will say, we want to change. We know what we're doing is not necessarily the right thing. And then after 3 months, we figure out, oh, well, maybe they don't want to change as much as they want to, or they had great intentions, but there's something keeping them internally, like maybe sales isn't 100% on board or whatever it is. But most of the time, we work with clients for about 6 to 12-month contracts. And we've had clients for, one of our longest clients that we had was over 5 years. And the only reason we stopped working with them was because they were purchased by a larger organization. So basically all of their marketing team just kind of left because they were swallowed up by a bigger organization.
Yeah. But then those people go to another company and they call you and say, hey, could you come do this?
Yes, it's happened more
That's
times
actually a good thing.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank God.
And do you ever go in and you just realize they maybe should not even have invested this huge amount in the software? We should just start from zero.
A lot of times. But we've worked with a lot of people that unfortunately they weren't the ones that purchased it. They kind of inherited the platform and they have this 2-year contract that they got to ride through. Yeah. But we try to help them as much as we can, kind of optimize what they do have and try to make it better while they're in that trying to write out the contract, because a lot of people realize that they shouldn't have bought it in the first place. They weren't ready yet. And then they realize they weren't ready, but they also didn't necessarily need it. Because it's clunky because it's so expensive and you need someone to man it. You need to always use it. And a lot of these platforms, you're not paying just for the solution, you're paying for the ad spend too. So like I spoke to someone who's like, we have a $200,000 contract with 6sense, but our quarterly ad spend's only $9,000. And I was like, the numbers aren't matching. Like, I don't understand.
You could do that yourself. Well, one thing about working with you is somebody could be at the company for 5 years going, we need to do ABM, or we're not utilizing this software and we need to do this. And everybody just sort of tunes them out, because they've been working there for so long. But then you come in, it's like a breath of fresh air, and like people can get in a room and go, okay, this is new. Even though the person's been saying it for, they've been saying it for 5 years, but because you're new, it's
I'm a third party. It's easier to listen to.
It's amazing.
No, totally.
Well, I think if anybody's struggling with this, or you need support in this area, they should definitely give you a call. And I just thank you for coming on the show and helping us through this. I'm sure there's a lot of people struggling.
Oh yeah, it's never a finished process. So there's always ways to optimize, especially if you change industries, you launch a new product, you try to change motion somewhere. It's never. That's one of the great things about what we do. It's never changing, or
it's
always
never changing. And people are coming in and out. I mean, people only stay at tech companies for 2 or 3 years. I mean, that's a long time, and then they're off to the next one, and you go in, and that's a mess, and so it's nonstop. And so if people want to get in touch with you, it's Personal ABM. Is it, what's your website?
Yeah, personalabm.com. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, follow our podcast, follow our pages on LinkedIn. That way you can see we try to do monthly webinars too. So that would be a great way to learn a little bit more and kind of figure out how we could support potentially future clients.
Awesome. Well, Kristina, thank you so much. Great to meet you. Looking forward to meeting live.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.